ZXO.
Hello, hello, hello. Today we're transforming this wig into a rainbow mullet. This was $17 from Amazon. It's a synthetic fiber hard front wig. We're going to dye, cut, and style her into a mullet. I've dyed synthetic wigs before, but I've never done multiple colors on one wig, so this is an experiment for me today. It's really fun working with cheap wigs because you can try out new things and there's not much risk. So I'm planning to dye it before I cut it because it will be easy to section out the hair while it's all long. So
my first step is to section off about 2/3 of the hair into a ponytail on the top of the wig head. Then I'll pin back most of the bangs up into the ponytail.
And now I'll be able to hold her by the ponytail and dunk her into the pot of boiling dye water.
I want this underlayer of hair that I've left out, as well as the roots of the rest of the wig, to be dyed a dark color. I'm mixing together brown, crimson, royal purple, and sapphire blue synthetic fabric dyes to a small pot of simmering water. I wasn't quite sure what shade of color this was going to make, but I knew it would be pretty muddy. I didn't know if it would be closer to a black or a burgundy. If it was black, I wanted to dye the rest of the hair in all of the rainbow tones. As I was rinsing out the dye in cold water, I could tell it would dry to more of a burgundy, so I had a change of plans.
I'm going to focus on the secondaries. Purple, orange, we're going to make green, mixing golden yellow and turquoise. And I also have the darker pink tracks that I'm going to sew in later.
I'm going to pin her on the head at this point because I'll be leaving her on the head as we dye the rest of the hair. Now I'm sectioning off the bangs that haven't been dyed yet into small ponytails that will each be dyed either purple, green, or orange. I used just a little bit of the dyes at first to test the color because I wasn't sure how much I would need using such small pots of dye water. But after dyeing the bangs for the first time, it was clear that the colors were not vibrant enough, so I had to go back in and add much more dye to the pots. Using the color intensifier that comes with the dyes helps get the tones more vibrant, as does keeping the hair in the pots a little longer. Once I was happy with the colors, I sectioned off the whole head into small ponytails and rotated colors as I dyed each one. Synthetic hair generally only needs a few minutes in the dye water to take the color, but the longer you keep it in, the more vibrant tones will be. So patience is your friend if you're looking for vibrant colors. Once all the ponytails were dyed, I snipped out my elastics with scissors and steamed the hair back to straight.
I am very excited about how the colors turned out, and now it's time to add some pink hair. These tracks were originally silver, and I dyed them with the crimson eye-dye poly.
For anyone new to styling synthetic hair, the easiest and quickest way to get it from tangled to straight is with steam.
I have sectioned off the hair to where I want to add my first section of pink. I want it near the top so it's pretty visible. And I have doubled up a track so it's a little bit thicker. My first step was to thread my needle, pass the needle through both layers of the track, and tie that off with a double knot stitch. I'll pin it onto the head where I want it to lay, and then I'll start my blanket stitch.
A blanket stitch is the best way to sew a track onto a wig because the needle only needs to go through the tracks at the beginning and the end of the stitch. This preserves the hair in the tracks. To make a blanket stitch, pass your needle through the wig cap, under the track that's already sewn to the wig, back up through the wig cap, and pass the needle back through the loop of thread and pull it tight. Then repeat. Tying it off at the end is the trickiest part, but I'll show you what works best for me. You start with a normal blanket stitch, passing the needle under the wig cap, under the track that's sewn to the wig already, and back up through the wig cap. But instead of going around the tracks you're adding to the wig, pass the needle straight through the tracks. Then loop the needle through the thread and pull almost to the end, but not quite. Now loop the thread around the needle twice and pull through. This should create a nice secure knot where you can snip your thread. I added 6 sections of pink hair to the wig total, 2 on each of the sides, 1 in the back, and 1 in the front to be part of the bangs.
Now we're ready to cut. I have her in a ponytail, so just these front sections are out. I'm gonna chop them short. Let's get started.
To make my initial cuts, I'm using layering scissors at an angle to cut most of the hair. Then I'm going in with my regular scissors slightly below where I made the cut with the layering scissors. You could do this whole cut with just the layering scissors or just the regular scissors, but sometimes combining the two tools works the best. If I was doing this only with regular scissors, I'd have to make all these cuts from below, and it takes a really long time. Using the layering scissors makes all the edges jagged and natural in a very quick and efficient way. After the sides were cut short, I lifted sections of hair up and trimmed the tips with the layering scissors to create more layers and shorter sections on the top of the head. I did the same thing across the front of the bangs and trimmed up the front of the bangs a bit. Once I was happy with the sides and the top, I sectioned the back into 3 layers. The first is the longest section, and that's the burgundy you can see here. I barely touched it at all. I just went in with the layering scissors a little bit to thin out the ends, but I kept all of the length. The second section you can see blends the first and the third. It's these longer, colorful hairs. And on those, I thinned them out a lot to make them stringier and made a lot of shorter parts to blend the two sections together. And the top section here is cut pretty short, about the same length as the sides, and it has some shorter bits as well, and I'm really happy with how she's looking. My next step will be to style the wig. I'm going to tease the top and make some spikes. I have my favorite teasing comb. I'll link it in the description. Something about this, it's like so targeted and yet effective. It makes a really dense base tease and it doesn't mess up the ends so much. To tease out the top of the wig, I'm taking small sections of hair and holding them straight up, taking my teasing comb a few inches up from the root and combing downward toward the root, packing the tease down as I go. I have this Got To Be spiking wax I'm going to use to make spikes with the tips after it's all teased out. Teasing a wig when the end result's supposed to look messy is a lot less pressure than teasing a wig when the end result is supposed to look neat and clean, so I had a lot of fun working on this wig. Now I'm using my Got To Be spiking wax to create little spikes out of the top of the tease. And once it was at a place of volume that I liked it, I went in with this is just a dry hairspray, and I sprayed it all over. I lifted all the tease sections and sprayed from underneath as well. And I took the end of my comb, stuck it in the bottom of the tease and kind of lifted and sprayed to create the symmetry and lift I needed throughout the teasing. So yeah, once I spiked the whole front to where I wanted it, I went in with the Got To Be spiking wax on my hands and separated this bottom, because when the hair was clean it was just all so like neat and free flowing, but also it gets really staticky and like hairs will just sort of like fly. And the look I'm going for is like greasy, neglect, grunge. So I used the spiking wax and like kind of rolled some hair into these faux neglect dreads and just kind of made it into this stringy, stuck together thing, so that it wasn't this nice, neat, free-flowing synthetic hair that gets static. And I did that all along in this second section of hair as well. You can see these are all kind of formed into their little spikes. That's all with the spiking wax. But I am really living for this 80s punk rock, spiky, David Bowie from Labyrinth fantasy. It's giving me everything that I need right now. And I'm very excited to go try her on for you guys. I'll be right back. So here's the finished product, and I'm really happy with it. I'll show you from the back. If you're curious how I made this dress, be sure to check out my last video linked here. This is ZeekXO signing out. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.